In the list of the most important battles in One Piece history, this one is undoubtedly among the most significant of all. For those who may not fully remember how this battle unfolded, you might not realize how profoundly it changed Zoro's life. He literally started this fight as one person and was reborn as another after this defeat. That's why I made this comprehensive summary of the battle between Zoro and Mihawk, the most important one in Zoro's life. It all begins when Gin, one of Don Krieg's lieutenants, arrives at the Baratie restaurant begging for food, as he and his entire crew were decimated during their last journey through the Grand Line. In the end, even though all the cooks refuse to give him food, Sanji is the only one who shows empathy for Gin and feeds him. Soon after, Gin returns, asking for food for the rest of his companions, including the infamous Don Krieg, who was also starving. As crazy as it may seem, Zeph appears with an enormous sack of food and hands it over to all of these pirates, fully aware they would attack afterward. While his companions eat, Gin begins telling everyone at the Baratie what led them to this pitiful state. He explains that upon reaching the Grand Line, a mysterious man appeared alone and single-handedly destroyed a fleet of over 50 ships. At that point in the story, this was an utterly unbelievable feat. There had been no similar account in the East Blue, where a single man was capable not only of defeating thousands alone, but also of destroying more than 50 ships. Gin describes the terror of standing before someone so powerful. He says that this man had an utterly intimidating presence, with hawk-like eyes that seemed to pierce right through with a single look. Just hearing this makes Zoro flinch, showing he knows this man. Luffy notices and asks Zoro who this person is. This man is exactly who Zoro has been searching for since before he joined Luffy's crew. He is none other than Mihawk, the Hawkeyes, the best swordsman in the world. Zoro has dedicated his entire life to training, to finally find and defeat this man, for only then can he become the best swordsman in the world. Zoro has an obsession with this title because of a friend from his past. As a child, Zoro traveled from dojo to dojo, challenging fighters. It was then that he found a dojo where there was a girl named Quina. Because she was a girl, he thought it would be easy to defeat her. But contrary to what he expected, Quina had a huge advantage over him. Her swordsmanship was so refined that Zoro could do nothing against her skills. Because of this, he began to live in that dojo, training and challenging the girl every day. However, no matter how much he trained, he always lost to her. Literally, 2,000 battles occurred between them, and Zoro lost miserably every single time. In their last battle, Zoro heard something he didn't want to hear. Quina said that because she was a girl, it was only a matter of time before he surpassed her strength, as biologically, the male gender is physically stronger than the female. Upon hearing this, Zoro was indignant because he didn't want the person he admired most in the world to use such an excuse. He didn't want to hear that from her on the day he finally defeated her, as it would be very disgraceful to win just because she didn't trust her own body. Therefore, he made a pact to restore Quina's confidence, a promise that, in the future, one of them would become the best swordsman in the world. Quina had what it took to fight with confidence again, but unfortunately, everything fell apart. The next day, she died in an accident at home. Of course, this was a huge blow to young Zoro, who could no longer see the point in continuing his obsession with becoming the best swordsman in the world. That's why he decided to ask Quina's father to give him the Wado Ichimonji, the sword used by Quina herself. Zoro believes that her soul still lives in his sword and wants to carry it. For now that Quina is gone, he needs to fulfill this dream for both of them. Since then, Zoro has been training intensely to finally find the one who is considered the best swordsman in the world and at last claim that title for himself. Upon hearing from Gin that the man he has been searching for is in the Grand Line, he realizes that following Luffy to the Grand Line is the right path, where he will finally encounter Hawkeyes. Zoro's plan was to find Mihawk only in the Grand Line, but for better or worse, that man came to him. Mihawk appears, destroying Krieg's ship in half as if it were a piece of paper. Of course, Mihawk didn't come just to fight Zoro, especially since he didn't even know him. Mihawk was there to eliminate those infamous pirates. Even knowing that Mihawk is unanimously considered the best swordsman in the world, and despite hearing accounts of his incredible power, capable of exterminating thousands of ships at once, Zoro still showed confidence in defeating him. That's why he approaches Mihawk, declares that his goal is to become the best swordsman in the world and challenges Hawkeyes to a duel. Just by looking at his opponent, Mihawk already knows the outcome of this fight. Mihawk does not underestimate Zoro because of his appearance or anything like that, but rather because of Zoro's posture. If he were a great swordsman, he would recognize the abyss of power that exists between them at that moment. But on the contrary, Zoro continues to call Mihawk for a duel, believing that there is a chance of victory. In the end, even knowing it will be an easy fight, Mihawk accepts the duel. Zoro doesn't want to hear anything else and immediately begins wielding his 3 swords. He knows it will be a difficult fight, so he needs to end it quickly with a fatal attack. When everyone expected Mihawk to demonstrate his strength with his enormous sword, he simply removes the cross he was wearing on his chest and pulls out a small dagger to fight. Yes, even in the face of one of the most renowned and powerful swordsmen in the East Blue, Mihawk decides to confront Zoro's 3 swords with a mere dagger. As justification, he says he wouldn't use a cannon to hunt a simple little bunny like Zoro. Mihawk literally has no mercy in stepping on Zoro's pride. He even states that Zoro is confident because people fear his name in the East Blue. But the problem is that the East Blue is by far considered the weakest sea of all, making Zoro's fame completely insignificant compared to the power of the thousands of swordsmen scattered across the other seas. To make matters worse, Mihawk says he regrets not having an even smaller blade to fight Zoro with. After crushing and trampling Zoro's ego, the pirate hunter decides to attack with his 3 swords. He uses onigiri, a concentrated technique with the 3 swords, but to the shock of everyone watching, Mihawk finds the exact moment of impact and defends all 3 swords with his small dagger. That confidence in victory that Zoro had just seconds ago disappears. All we see is a face filled with fear, surprise, and shock at what he is witnessing. Zoro can't believe the enormous gap between his powers and those of the best swordsman in the world. It was literally the power of the vastness of the world falling right before his eyes. The confidence may have waned, but pride, that doesn't fall easily. Zoro continues to attack relentlessly with his 3 swords, but no matter how much he attacks, Mihawk always easily defends with the dagger. Zoro literally cannot believe what he is seeing before his eyes. He knew that the odds of losing were high, but he never imagined the difference in power would be so striking. As the battle progresses, Zoro's expression of surprise and denial is replaced by one of shame and humiliation. He truly feels embarrassed, as if all those years of intense training are being disregarded because of a simple little dagger. When Zoro attacks recklessly, Mihawk strikes his neck, trying to knock him out once and for all. The wear from all the attacks, combined with this blow from Mihawk, causes Zoro to lose almost all his strength, to the point where he can hardly attack. Even so, he knows he cannot give up. Therefore, he prepares for one more concentrated attack with his 3 swords. But before he can advance, Mihawk takes a more offensive stance and plunges his sword into Zoro's chest. It is at this moment that Zoro surprises Mihawk. Even with a blade stabbed in his chest, Zoro shows no signs of retreating. On the contrary, he continues to move forward. Hawkeyes is surprised, knowing that anyone with little determination would have already backed down. But Zoro is different from all of them. Zoro says he is not the type to retreat, for if he were to take even a single step back, the promise he made would have been in vain. He would literally rather die in battle than lose defensively. Hawkeyes realizes that these words are not mere bravado, for he feels at the tip of his blade that his opponent's words resonate in his wounded chest. Determined not to back down, although Zoro is infinitely weaker than him, Mihawk acknowledges that the swordsman's willpower is beyond anyone else in the world. He recognizes the power of his opponent and asks for his name, wanting to remember, as it has been a long time since he encountered someone like him. As compensation, Mihawk decides to use all his strength, wielding the infamous Yoru, considered the best sword in the world. At this point, Zoro has no hope of winning. If he couldn't overcome a mere dagger, imagine a monstrosity like this sword. Zoro's 3 swords clash against Mihawk's Yoru in this final collision. Both charge forward, and the result surprises no one. Mihawk destroys 2 of Zoro's blades and injures him, ending the fight. Zoro accepts his defeat and declares that he never imagined he would be defeated one day. However, for a swordsman, scars on the back are a disgrace, so he opens his arms and offers his body for Mihawk to defeat him with dignity. Hawkeye shows no mercy and makes an extremely deep cut on Roronoa, who falls immediately into the sea. Everyone is shocked by the brutality of Mihawk's attack. Luffy, on the other hand, can't contain himself and rushes at Mihawk, but he can't even touch him. Mihawk sees Zoro being rescued by Usopp, Johnny, and Yosaku and tells him that it is still too early to die. He wants Zoro to live to train no matter how many years it takes until the day they can fight again. Since Luffy is the captain of this honorable swordsman, Mihawk assumes he must be as incredible as his swordsman. He then asks what his ambition is, and of course Luffy replies that he will be the Pirate King. Even with Mihawk saying that this is much more difficult than defeating him, Luffy responds that he will still be the Pirate King. This only makes Mihawk feel that he is facing an extremely promising pirate. But before everything ends, Zoro raises his Wado Ichimonji and tells Luffy that he may die, but he will never lose again until the day he defeats this man. Moreover, he makes a promise to Luffy. He will become the best swordsman in the world so that Luffy can become the Pirate King. This battle is extremely important because Zoro did not know how vast this world was. Since he was born, he had been limited to the East Blue and had never encountered such strong people to test his skills. That is why he still believed in a possible victory. After all, wherever he went, people feared his name, which greatly inflated his ego to the point of believing it would be possible to defeat Mihawk. But this massacre is so brutal that it serves to make Zoro and Luffy realize how weak they still are. They had no idea of the vastness of the world and the number of incredible people that exist. This is the trigger for both of them to feel firsthand that the Grand Line holds challenges they are not yet ready to face. That fight was pretty cool, right? But even cooler is subscribing to the channel and turning on the notification bell. Just your subscription makes all the work I put into making this special video worthwhile. So click the subscribe button and activate notifications. It helps a lot. Not to mention that you will receive all the new videos posted here on the channel. Thank you so much for everything. A big hug and see you next time.